About to introduce you to has had about as much adversity in his life as any profilee I've seen. Yet he's developed the wisdom to handle these challenges better than most people do in a lifetime. He's not taken his frustration and anger out on others, but tries to make the best out of tough situations. He really shows what it takes to have the real winning edge.
During 8th grade, I would say I was involved in gangs. I had friends snorting 8 balls of cocaine in the bathrooms and not getting caught. I had friends getting stabbed, and it was just a bad situation. My biological dad, when he was into drugs and he was involved in a gang, to my knowledge, he beat my mom, and I watched him get carried away and arrested. My mom was trying to take care of all the kids. We were really fending for ourselves. So I played 8th grade football. I was a middle linebacker captain, and then I went to high school and I played running back and special teams. I started playing football in Canada, equivalent to being a junior, transitioning to my senior year in high school. It was definitely challenging. I would say I gained perseverance. Was the whole concept of believing in God, trusting in God. That was a big lesson for me to learn, and I learned it quick.
Alex and I met, we were living in the same apartment complex together. His aunt was taking care of Alex and also all of Alex's siblings. His mother basically left the children in the care of the aunt. I would hear Alex call his mother, and on the other end of the line I could hear her screaming and yelling at him.
I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. There were 9 of us. The housing, the moving, I think it was like 54 times or something crazy like that. Not even apartments, it was like shelters, pretty much. I got really good at living out of a box and living out of a luggage. We lived in a 2 or 3 bedroom, Section 8 housing.
Alex would wander around the apartment complex every day after school, looking for companionship. He would come over to the house, and I could tell he was just hungry. You know, he would come over at dinner time, and I'd ask him, you know, do you want to stay for dinner? And so eventually I started asking him over for meals, and we encouraged him to go into the Army National Guard, and he did that. He's a wonderful kid. He is amazing.
We moved a lot growing up as a kid. I think it was every 3 months, so it was really tough with schooling. My transition from junior high was gang affiliated, involved in gangs, drugs. Really bad circumstances and bad kids. A friend of mine called me one day and she told me she wanted to go to church.
Yeah, Alex walked into church one day on his own without his family, and then after the message he came up to me and just spilled his guts.
I ended up going to the youth group and meeting Matt, and it went from all of that to being at a church camp and him praying with me 2 days before we came back, and that really is what ignited my faith and my passion to want to pursue Christ.
He knew that he wanted a different route, a different direction, a different ending than his family or those around him. So he pushed in, and I really believe that God put it on his heart that there was a better way for him to live, and he was open to all the feedback. He wanted that male representation in his life. He wanted someone to hold him accountable.
Alex had quite a lot of trouble understanding how to relate with the other students at the private school because of his tumultuous family background. He didn't have the same worldview that the students at the private school, who most of them had very comfortable upbringings. He was coming from a very different place than they were. I really worked to sit down and talk with him a lot, talk through situations and give him a new cognitive framework to look at life with.
After that transition of being introduced to God, I would say everyone that I used to talk to that was gang affiliated or not of God, I kind of just cut them off. They kind of just dwindled away. And God presented new friends, new people, just personable people that I just liked and liked me.
Alex had the ability to step outside himself. Instead of holding on to grudges and prejudices and his mindset, he was able to step outside of that. He wanted to succeed that badly. It was his ability to be able to let go and be self-reflective, because the world wasn't going to change to fit him. You know, he had to see the world through different glasses, so to speak.
I got involved in the Army Reserves because I wanted to help people. I wanted to serve the country. I wanted to do something bigger than myself. and I knew it was a difficult task, and I love challenges.
He's always finding some way to bring himself up, but he's my connection to get me to become a better person. Alex has to deal with 4 things. He has to deal with the Army Reserves, full-time student, part-time job, and he has to manage his time accordingly.
In regards to goals, as I look to the future, working with the Army as an Army chaplain, inspiring people, allowing people to see God through me.
How do you put up with yourself?
Singing was always one of my gifts that God gave me. I feel like music for me, it brings me to peace. With the guitar, it was kind of something I just thought would be cool to try. It eases the mind. It's a way for me to get away from my worries.
Well, I first got to know Alex at the school studio. He really was talented with his vocals. He has a great voice. And really with his guitar playing, for only playing for as much as he really has some skill.
Baron, being the godly man he is, he's so willing to teach and so willing to help people that are learning the guitar.
The one thing that's really unique about Alex is his drive. He came in and really even wasn't all that prepared, but was driven to get the thing done, to get what he needed to get done. And that really impressed me.
God will lift and elevate my music the way he wants to elevate it. My biggest thing for me is if I can touch one person through one of my songs or just one verse in my lyrics, that's a huge accomplishment for me. Since I committed my life to God, I would honestly say my faith has rapidly changed. My perspectives have changed. I never really knew what it meant to be a believer or allow God to lead my path. It was more like he was a genie. And over the last few years, it's been more, God, what do you want me to do?
This young man is going to change the world because he's come from a place that most people may not ever experience. And it is a deep, dark place, but when you've come from that, you know you're never going to go back. I've seen him put his trust in God as opposed to trying to put his trust in his own abilities.
I really feel it's important to be held accountable, and to be accountable, God gives his hardest task to his strongest soldiers. So I really feel at the end of the day, as long as you're keeping God first, everything will fall into place.
Life has kicked him down so many times. He just always manages to bounce back, and I believe that's through his faith.
I find time for God anywhere and everywhere. I have a Bible app on my phone, and I get the scripture of the day. So I make time for God. There's always time for God. If you've got time to sit around, then you've got time for God. In life, you're going to have struggles, you're going to have trials, you're going to have tribulations, and if you're doing everything for God and you're seeking him wholeheartedly, it's not always going to be, smooth sailing. The real willing edge that I would say in my life is, as I face my challenges, would be God's grace, the Lord's grace. He's always there when I need him. I really feel like it's God's grace that's the true winning edge for me through my trials and tribulations.